A low master main tank with his team. So let's see here. Going right. Already Ryan on this map is sometimes a little bit iffy. It can be a lot of times very difficult to know where to shield. My primary issue right away, if you're playing on a team, is that you're on Monkey and your Zarya is on Diva. And it looks like you're going to get maybe both of them to half, but not kill either of them. Which isn't even remotely surprising.
Okay, I'm dropping.
Okay, so Zen's alone on point. We have everyone else up top, including their Ashe, who's going to want that high ground. And we are Ryan Zarya, so we're not going to be able to take high ground at all. Why can our Sombra not farm a Zen alone?
Zen dead. Get Mercy now.
We gave them the high ground which they like, which they want for free, and they should have just farmed your team that was on high ground still, and then farmed you guys on point. Would have been about a 20-second, 30-second process for them, and they could have easily won that point.
I'm holding second choke. Yeah, that's strength goats.
It's a good call.
Sorry, I thought you were shooting. Back.
You can call out when you're going to be fire striking too, so that stuff like this doesn't happen. It's so easy to just say fire striking as soon as you started walking up. Like you had plenty of time, and you pretty much got your Zen killed there.
Can you go get him? Maybe? No, maybe not. Right. Okay. I'm low.
Right high. Get right in on him. Right low.
No edge.
Okay. I did notice you asked this question too, so that's part of the reason that this is being brought up so early. It is much better if you can add a location to your call, because not everyone's going to know where Ryan is. Even if you can say something dumb like right in front of me, they can at least see your outline and stuff. Or, you know, if they're at like a choke like this, you can say on Ryan at choke, whatever it is exactly. Less important on Ryan generally, way more important on like Winston, for example. Because your Diva might not have seen like exactly where you went.
That's huge. I'm a Diva. Oh no, I charged the Z back. That's huge.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm coming.
Ryan's one.
Get ready.
Yeah.
3, 2.
So we used essentially our best combo when it was already a 5v6. I don't know why we wouldn't have just pushed in there, especially because they're missing their Lucio. They can't kite us at all. So if we really wanted to ult, we could have just used EMP, and we may not have even needed to ult at all because we were already winning that fight. So you got a nice percentage to your shatter back, but still very questionable that we did that at all. And our best ult that we have is 30% to cooldown now, and we maybe didn't need to use it. I also want to hear you calling stuff as a main tank about the enemy Zarya's bubbles. You got hard baited there. He just turned around and you pushed into him. Don't let Ryans do that to you. That's super common. Super common. So you can see the turnaround right here. Right here. And he's right there in front of you. And then he turns around and shatters you.
That's big play.
When we know that their Ryan has shatter, we don't need to be throwing as many fire strikes.
It's okay, just stall on the point. If you can get a pick,
But what I was saying is I'd like to see you call Zarya's bubbles more. Just saying stuff like Zarya no projected, Zarya no personal. Like that can be your chance to push on their enemy Ryan right there.
Okay, let's go.
So you know your Zarya doesn't have projected now. You didn't have to swing that much. You could have just shielded your team while they did the damage there. For sure. Especially because you had the Brig behind you and stuff like that. She could have armor packed you 110%.
I can't see anything. Nope. I can't see anything.
Brig hacked? No, wait, Zarya hacked. Zarya hacked. She's one.
Okay, we're good. Let them have it.
We can win this. Right hack.
No, we can't.
Yep, so you guys do need to call. You've lost that fight. It's very losable.
Brig's overextending.
Fall out, group up.
It's okay, we can regroup and spawn.
What servers are these?
EU, why?
Currently getting 300.
Well, that's your
We're
fault.
80. We're 80 on EMP.
Okay, that's EMP,
Should
EMP
we wait
grab,
for
EMP
EMP?
grab.
The Ryan's looking for a flank shatter. He's on the right.
He's right side, yeah.
And there's Zen's left.
He was right side, I don't know where he's now.
He's made now.
Right.
Okay, so it kind of seems like we have the first step
Threw it into my shield.
to alt tracking, which is
Needs
nice.
to go in.
We have our alts pretty
You have
solidly,
whatever
but
you want.
we're not talking about their alts at all.
EMP.
So like we had our plan to EMP grav, but then we let them grav first, and we let them rally first and essentially farm us off of those alts.
He's
And
gone
so,
now. Zeno left side, Zeno left
kind of a
side.
big throw
He's
there,
in middle, he's trying to-
especially because we had a plan, and we could have, if we had talked about their alts, you know, said that they have grabs, so we need to grab first, or whatever, you would have won that fight just off of that.
Hack and Diva, hack and Diva.
And if we lose this fight, it is 110%.
Bubble was
Oh,
insane.
yikes. It is 110% that we didn't talk about our enemies' alts at all. We can't, like, disrespect our enemies. We have to
I don't know why we
keep in mind that they're a team as well.
should let
They are going to have an idea of what alts they want to use as well. And we're kind of, like, throwing if we don't talk about their alts at all.
If you want us to swap, call us. Just swap.
I don't know.
I don't see anything wrong with some. Let's stop their beat draw.
Yeah.
Last
Let's
fight.
their front line is shredding our. That's the problem.
It's okay, it's okay.
I mean, we lost what, like 2 fights on Sombra Guns? This is a very dive heavy map.
Yeah, let's run Monkey Goats Mini. Can you Diva?
Yes.
Nice. Is it mini or mean?
Whatever you prefer. I don't know.
Go Zen here again.
It's gonna be Mimi.
Fits Zen.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. They have stray ghosts, they have stray
That's
ghosts.
fine. Rain Guns, Rain Guns.
Okay, let's go high ground mini. Let's go high ground.
Okay, and then you should not be bubbling there at all. All the damage that you're taking there should be healed, and you should be saving your bubble for your engage that's about to happen.
No one.
Back.
No, break is half as well.
So we just kind of used our bubble to block like random damage,
Okay.
and that's not the goal at
Just
all.
bubble Ryan and bubble Winston, and then he bubbles himself. So that's Diva out. Boom, we might be able to engage on Stan because it might. Did he use any bubbles?
I didn't see any.
Okay. I'm sorry if my keyboard is really loud, that's why.
No, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I think mine's good.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
No, Alex-
It's a long pause.
She's low, she's off,
Okay.
she's off. She's one now, she's dead.
Gonna rain.
Your dive sort of ended up working out. You did it right. I like the fact that you dropped on them, so you 100% still had your jump in case they wanted to try and kill you there. But if we would have had our bubble, it could have been even cleaner there, and we may have never had to do any sort of retreat.
Push up, come to choke.
Yeah, come through,
We can push Zarya, right? She has no bubbles.
No, there's even out. Let's regroup, let's just regroup. Bryce, come back a bit. Mini,
I
we're
have no
playing
bubbles
Bryce.
right now. There's Arias, use personal.
Okay. Ryan the fire strike.
Zen 1. Ryan discarded.
Yikes. I don't know why we jumped up there. Definitely not
Break off,
needed.
break off.
And later in the game, we'll get our team shattered by doing that.
No personal bubble, yeah?
Don't know why we jumped in here either. We had a really nice jump at first, and now we're kind of throwing with our jumps. Just walk up to them so that you can jump out if you need to.
Ryan super low, Ryan can die.
Watch out for shatter, watch out for shatter.
So Ryan is the target call, and you primal and focus the Zen
Almost full fence and make
while the rest of your team gets farmed. Absolutely terrible target focus, and a terrible ult to go along with it because of the target focus.
I think I got Ryan goes here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have every ult except for
The comp you guys were playing was not the problem. It was the fact that you jumped in there, made it seem like you were going to finish the Ryan, and then just left.
We have combo.
It's okay. We're about to have combo. What do they have? They use Shatter. What else?
They use
They
Shatter.
use Rally, they use Rally.
They use Rally. I don't know what else.
Okay.
I think they have both support ults.
I want to go right side door. Right side door.
Yeah, they probably close the bomb too. Bomb is on the right.
Huge, huge, huge.
Brig one, brig one. Try to pin him.
I did.
Yeah, our pin was way late there.
I'm bad.
Get Ryan, get
On
Ryan.
the right,
Ryan's
on
in
the right,
position.
right on the right.
It can just be earlier. Like, you don't have to wait that long. If you're gonna take the Rhine away from the bomb, that's all that really
Sorry, no
matters.
person. Sorry, no person. Now's the time. Sorry.
Push her. Everyone on the
Nice. Lucio now.
Give it this
Diva now.
Can we discard Lucio?
Nice. Lucio now.
There you go. So this is one of the first times the whole game that, and this is kind of more team feedback, but it's you feedback because you want to shot call for your team, that your team has actually had like a real level of target focus,
Lucio.
both in calls and both in like follow-up.
Nice. That's okay.
And we have had some calls, like when we called the Rhine, but then we just didn't go on him. That means our target focus is still bad.
They use
We had the first half, we called it, but we didn't stay on
They
it.
have Rally.
Yeah.
Zen's a low right side right now.
We can.
Rally is Rally is fight.
So did you ask your team, like, did they shatter you while I was gone or anything? Or are you literally just playing to the right of your team right now, hoping that he doesn't shatter? Because he could shatter your team here, he could still shatter your team. Right now you're kind of shielding your team, but then again you rotate right. I would shatter your entire team if I was him right now.
Right.
Get this Ryan. Keep going.
Watch out.
Could have gotten a 5-man shatter, and we don't even know like if he has shatter or anything like that. So we still just aren't respecting our enemies' ults at all.
I'm shattering this fight.
Yeah, just.
That's fine.
They have no bubble
No
on
That's
the
fine. That's okay.
Nice.
Push. I'm on Zen.
Get Lucio. Nice.
So you said I'm shattering this fight, but you didn't actually have the remaining follow-up. So like one thing that like teams who are struggling like how to follow up on their ults, first and foremost, just tell your team when you're ulting. So shattering right now, as soon as you press Q, and that tells them that they can walk up and follow up on it. Otherwise, you know, I'm shattering this fight. Fights are sometimes very long. Maybe I'm playing far back, or maybe I used my nade already if you're like an Ana, for example, and now I can't anti your shatter.
We never play Oasis, so I don't know comps on it.
I mean, Rhine goats. This is actually like the Rhine map. So.
Okay, let's go Rangoats. Should we have played Monkey Goats on
Yeah,
season?
of all the maps, this is the best one for Rangoats.
We were kind of fine with what comp we had.
Okay.
We just needed a bit more coordination on City Center.
Yeah, I agree.
I also bought it out really hard.
Let's go right side, please. Right side. Through the door.
They're coming as well.
No Ali bubble.
That's fine. Sorry, no bubbles.
They have no bubbles.
Push.
Let's
Push
go run.
We can
Keep swinging. They're
I have
all
shots,
getting
I have
again.
shots, I have shots.
Okay, so your team's telling you to keep swinging, but you're falling back, and so there's a communication issue there, and you need to decide which one of you is going to be right, because we got our brig killed.
I'm falling back.
And we gave them all this free space and then just shattered a shield. That is really, really, really unfortunate.
They're all low.
Right now. He's one.
We kind of hard through that with our indecision, and then once we made a decision, it wasn't really right. Like, we continued to fall back off the point, and that is not good.
Zora now. Nice.
Can we go break
now.
Dear God, that was a fast grab.
Zen one.
It was. You almost have another one as
I
well.
played so bad that.
Right hand door, please.
Right side Zen.
I should have walked into
But we saw that our Zarya bubbled us there, so she doesn't have bubble yet. So let's be very careful.
They have no Ali
Come
bubble.
back to point.
There you go, and she's calling no bubbles. So that's good.
Shatter. Watch out.
Okay.
I might
Charge
have
it,
to
run down.
Little risky, but nice. It is Brig. So in Goats, your target focus should generally be going Rhine and then Brig. Unless Brig is just like massively out of position. Or anyone is just massively out of position. But generally speaking, Rhine and then Brig every time, and they can't win.
We can get Ryan. He's
Same way, like if you die, your team should try and play around your Brig, or sometimes your Zarya, depends.
Speed out.
Come all the way back. I've got to flank grab them.
Okay.
I don't
And
have
then
bubble.
slam for follow up.
So we're planning to flank grab them, so we should be holding up just a tiny bit. We're not close enough to follow up on a grab.
Huh?
We're super far. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, mine's fixed.
I'm pinned.
See how early he pinned you there, but you weren't anywhere near.
Ryan's on the right, completely
I'm
alone.
not sure you meant to block that, but nice. But you weren't anywhere near the grab, so it doesn't matter how early he pinned you.
Just play on point.
Coming.
You didn't tell your team you were shattering at all, that you were planning to shatter, that you had shatter. We haven't talked about their sound barrier that they just dropped. Like, we don't have a clue what's going on enemy-wise. We were just trying to make like a mess of like a scramble here, and that is not good.
I have
Run dead. Sorry now. Sorry has so much charge.
Like, maybe we would have stopped swinging if we knew that they were going to do that to us. Or maybe that we would have played a little bit differently if we knew they were going to drop a sound barrier as soon as their Ryan got low. But we're not even considering that at all.
Have you met Roshi? That's how he plays.
That's true. He was like under Mega. Right, when you're on the graph, we can have combo, and then we get shatter and everything. We got everything.
Yeah, cool. We use combo this fight, and I'll shatter if we need to.
So again, you only talked about your
Bryce, you need to go
ults.
for Bryce.
We didn't even talk about how they're probably going to try and
Let's
stop the
go,
combo.
Let's go.
We didn't really talk about how or where we're going to use it either. We just said we're going to use it.
One's dead.
It's fine. We forced that graph.
Oh, I thought we were gonna grab
Vince,
that.
you need to die.
My bad.
No, I don't have it yet.
Yeah, that's what
I
I
wasn't
realized.
gonna counter grab either. We have 5 ults this fight.
It's fine, we have both support ults, they just have shatter and support.
They might have bomb as well. Bryce, you need to go for a stun on their brig in the grab, okay?
Okay, so we've got plans here now. Sort of.
Zarina personal,
Not very well thought out plans, but plans.
Come right side.
You wanna go all the way right, okay? Okay, all the way right.
I don't have boosters, wait a second.
Oh, fair play.
We talked about the fact that they had shatter.
Big sound barrier.
That's super unfortunate.
He got me.
Ryan's still low.
So we had more faith in our bomb than we did
We
in
get Ryan,
their
we need to get Ryan
bomb.
now, we need to get Ryan. Rhino, get Rhino back up.
But that
He's overextended,
unfortunately
he's overextended,
definitely
get
did not
Ryan.
work
Okay, no,
out
back
for
up,
us.
back up, reset,
You guys are
reset.
actually just losing this game because you're not respecting your enemy and their ults.
Ryan's low.
Ryan was low. That's why I thought it was winnable.
Ryan's no shield.
Go back. Far.
Ryan has no shield.
We need to group up,
Ryan's one.
It's crazy that we're
Yeah,
even
so
out
am I,
here
so
right
am I,
now.
12 HP.
Just die.
I'm dead, yeah.
Just die.
Just regroup fast. We have one last fight. We need to go back to point really fast.
Mini, you might have to touch.
Yikes, none of you guys should even be out of spawn right now, at all.
Big.
None of you
Bring
guys.
one.
I'm gonna be huge time. You ready? Okay, I only got Ryan.
We ignored the brig, who was actually like farming us on our left. We would have just shattered the brig and then killed her. We would have at least helped our team.
Okay.
That is super unfortunate, but definitely a lot of stuff in there for you to work on personally. Couple of little tidbits for your team. I know you had questions too. Okay, I tend to move forward and backwards as run sometimes. My teammates don't. Should I call it or stop doing it? You just need to call where you're going. If you're playing goats, your team should be playing pretty close attention anyway, but you just need to call where you're going. So I'm going right, I'm going left, I'm going forward, I'm kiting back, I'm staying here for my shield to recharge, and that should generally fix this problem. You don't need to call every time you take a step forward, but your big or your overall movements should be called. Those are semi-decent mid-fight. Semi-decent, yeah, I agree. But between fights, I had to counter them. Yep, exactly. Really unfortunate. Generally, to break it down, if your team does not know how to alt track at all, one of the easiest ways is just to look at what alts you have and assume that they have around the same ones, or think what ones that they haven't used in a long time, and be ready for those. It's not a good way overall to alt track though, so don't rely on that, but it's a great way to start. What we do to counter them falls more on your supports, but if you want to be the shot caller, you need to be calling stuff like that. So like everyone should be playing behind me, or like Zarya should be saving her bubble to bubble me when they try and bash shatter. There's 1,000 different examples because every single ult has 5, 6, 7, 8 ways to counter it, but we need to be talking about how to counter them. and then what we use to win fights. You guys did okay at that. You would make a plan, like we're going to use our Diva Bomb combo here, but then you wouldn't actually say like where we're going to do it or how we're going to do it, or even call that you were like doing it, which can make the bomb be late, which can make the grab be late, and so it just isn't good yet. All right, and then you said I feel like maybe I need to be calling locations. Yeah. And you're right, brig. That's a great way to call. Generally, like if there's a target that we can all go on, like Ryan, I just go Ryan until Ryan is dead, and there's no like question, there's no second thought. If one of my teammates sees a really good target, they may call the swap, and we'll all swap because we're working together as a team. I'm not the most confident in calling comps, trying to get better, but I don't have the best knowledge. Honestly, this is just something that you have to kind of look, kind of study. Most teams end up making a spreadsheet for themselves of what comps that they are comfortable on what maps. I highly recommend it. I have pretty much never been on a team or coached a team that did not have some form of documentation of what comps they're going to run, either against specific teams or on certain maps or whatever exactly. But yeah, definitely, it's not too hard to learn. There's tons of YouTube videos on it, tons of Reddit posts on it. Even just watch like what the pros play on what maps, and then write all that down so you can reference it at any time. My primal usage as Winston isn't great. Yeah. Yeah, to say the least, but I'm not going to focus too much on that. You didn't play Winston much, and it wasn't even your primal itself that was actually terrible. It was your target focus within that primal that was terrible. So definitely some good tips in there for you and your team, and I hope it helps you guys a bit.